This is a residential hospital. It's supposed to care for adults with learning disabilities. People unable to care for themselves. But Panorama's been undercover and found systematic abuse. Patients suffering. Staff out of control. Away from their families, these were patients without a voice.
The level of abuse that I saw in that room was the worst I've ever seen in my entire life.
13 staff have been suspended from the hospital and patients moved to safety. Tonight, we expose a huge failure at the heart of our system of care. What should happen to this hospital?
It should be closed down.
An industrial estate on the fringes of Bristol, and a building which is home for up to 24 patients. It's called Winterbourne View, a purpose-built private hospital for people with learning disabilities and autism. When it's full, the taxpayer pays more than £4 million a year to house patients here. But not all is well. Last year, a senior nurse at the hospital complained to his bosses of abuse. He also went to the top, the healthcare watchdog, but nothing changed. So he risked his career to talk to us.
I've seen a lot over 35 years, and I've never seen anything like this. Never. It's the worst I've seen. These are all people's sons, daughters, parents, aunties, uncles. These are all people who've got families. And the families themselves don't know what goes on in there. They don't go inside the unit, they just go to the visitors area. And the patients come out to see them. Nobody, even the families, gets to see what's inside there. They would be horrified if they knew.
It's a hospital which should evaluate and treat its patients and work out how best to get them back into the community.
What it's supposed to do is to assess people's psychological and psychiatric state and perhaps to work out the best way of responding to somebody, both responding to them when they're presenting problem behaviour, but also the best way of supporting them.
Several staff had reported problems at Winterbourne View, assaults even, but nothing changed. We needed to get inside. So undercover journalist Joe Casey applied for a job as a support worker, a carer.
I just got offered a job and I've accepted, which is really, really good. And I just need to give him a call back to get a few more details.
It was going to be a sensitive operation. We arranged extra training so he'd know how to safely restrain disturbed and difficult patients. At the same time, he'd be using 3 secret cameras and keeping a daily video diary.
I was apprehensive about working at Winterbourne View and caring for people with learning disabilities. I've never worked in care before, and I had no idea what I would find when I'd walk in.
After just a week of training with the hospital, Joe finds himself working with some of the most disturbed and challenging patients.
Good morning.
He'll be working the top floor, the locked ward.
How are you?
It's where our whistleblower said the worst abuse is happening. There are long corridors with individual bedrooms for the 10 patients. They spend much of their day in the lounge. The staff sit among them.
There didn't seem to be much in the way of activities for the patients. A lot of the time the patients would be hanging around sort of in the lounge watching TV, and when there were activities a lot of them didn't seem interested in it at all, and they just looked bored.
Only those carers we filmed mistreating patients will be identified. The only patients we'll identify are those whose families have viewed the footage and agreed it can be shown. – 9 a.m. on the first day, and it's not long before Joe notices something odd.
a support worker called Ali was sitting with a patient on the couch and was just poking the patient's eyes. Right in front of me, just poking it, casually poking her eyes.
Ali's a support worker with 6 years' experience. As they wait for lunch, the same patient is on her knees being wrestled by another member of staff. Her shirt has ridden up her back, exposing bare flesh, and support worker Ali has seen it. All of these patients have learning disabilities, and many have only a childlike awareness of what's going on around them. After lunch, and Joe's in the lounge. All seems peaceful, but this time a carer called Graham starts to focus on a patient we'll see more of later.
What's up, mate?
Later, Joe's called to one of the most vulnerable residents. She's a woman in her 40s who lives in a fairy tale world of dolls and princesses. A group of support workers are making their way to her room. The patient throws something at one of them.
You would like it if I chucked things at you, would you? No, so stop it! Take it off you.
They punish her by confiscating her pillowcase.
When you can apologise and have it back. What was it? Give me that back now!
3 support workers take her to the floor.
Listen, you don't get to chuck stuff at me and get away with it. You should know that, alright? You know that I don't let you get away with it.
Do you need me or what?
One of them is lying across the patient's chest with an arm across her throat.
I'm going to keep it, alright, until you can say sorry.
They should be calming her down, but this is punishment.
Because we've done nothing to you except tell you to get dressed so you can have your You fit off!
Last year, the same patient suffered a broken arm whilst being restrained.
Go on, spit in my staff and I dare you. Go on, I dare you. Because you know what'll happen.
One of the staff involved is Charlotte. She gave Joe this piece of advice.
The minute she gets anywhere close to you, you just have to do what you got to do, Joe. If you're on your own,
Yeah.
Like if you have to smash her and you smash her, but you know you don't let that. The minute she starts shouting, I don't let her on her feet. I put her straight down.
All right, so get her straight on the floor.
The minute she starts shouting, you won't calm her down. It'll get worse, and somebody will get hurt, either a patient or yourselves. And then that's a big statement that you have to write why somebody's got hurt. Why was it? And the first thing management asks you, why wasn't she on the floor? So, yeah, I just whack them all down.
It's the end of Joe's first day on the top floor.
Yeah, I just whack them all down.
My first day, it was a real eye-opener. Not what I expected at all. The place was chaotic. It was pretty much as if it was being run by a group of bullies for their own entertainment.
We showed our footage to clinical psychologist Andrew McDonnell, an expert in the handling of patients with challenging behaviour.
When you can apologise and have it back. What was it?
Oh, for God's sake. Stonehenge. She's got her arm across her carotid artery on her neck.
What can that
do? Well, this supplies oxygen to your brain. I mean, these are not taught techniques as such. These are things that they are, in my opinion, making up as they're going along.
Our whistleblower Terry went to the hospital's management last year and named the patients he believed were at risk of being abused. One of them was Simon. He's 36, but has a mental age of 4. The cause remains a mystery.
Simon was a most high-profile patient. The reason he was high-profile was because he had a spirit about him and he was not downtrodden in any way.
Darling,
Sit down with me. Give me a hug, then.
And he loves to give people bear hugs. And they're hard to get out of, the bear hugs, they really are. The people there just didn't like it. They didn't respect what he was trying to do. It was his way of saying hello. People there would say, no, get off, push him away, and he'd often end up being restrained.
During his 5 weeks at Winterbourne View, Joe would get to know Simon well.
Simon, what's your name?
Joseph.
Joseph.
Simon Tovey is a really, really funny, interesting patient. Always makes me laugh, always makes me smile. I'm not the only one. All support workers always laugh and smile when they're around Simon.
I need to go downstairs, mate.
His enthusiasm and the way his character is just infectious. He's basically sort of got the mind of a kid. He sometimes oversteps the mark.
You need to calm down for me.
You know, invades people's personal space, gets a bit too close, won't take no for an answer. But apart from that, he's just brilliant. I absolutely love spending time with him.
Yeah. I'll come with you.
Okay. Don't worry.
I've been good.
You have been very good. You did lots of work today, didn't you?
Simon used to live here in a small residential care home close to his mother's village in Wiltshire.
He does a lot of hugging. He was a very placid child. He didn't start to become much more active until he was older. He's always very generous. He'd give you his last sweet. He's that generous.
But his behaviour grew more challenging and the council intervened. Simon was moved, supposedly on a temporary basis, but ended up in a succession of hospitals.
It was incredibly distressing. We suddenly had no control over Simon's life or what happened to him. So in the end we acquiesced and we went along with it because we were clearly informed that Simon would be returning to his place, his home.
That was 3 years ago. Now Simon's behind locked doors in Winterbourne View. One afternoon, Joe comes across him sitting in the corner of the lounge with a care worker on his lap. It's the eye poker, Ali again. She's had enough.
Take you to PlayStation.
What do I do?
Get up there.
Whisper in the ear. Get your hands away from me.
She's just snatched his favourite drink bottle. It might not seem much, but the bottle goes with him everywhere. It's acquired a special meaning. Our expert says if it's out of his grasp, it could trigger panic.
If you've ever concentrated on something yourself, a particular thing that you like to hold in your hand, it helps focus you away from what's happening around you. It helps you tune out. When somebody takes that off you, that's the equivalent of somebody taking your whole security blanket away.
Anymore.
Oh, look, very miserable.
It's like his dummy.
Huh?
It's like his dummy.
Oh dear.
That's what his gums are used as. No.
Can I window?
Yeah.
I bet I can.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
He goes to close the window. It looks like he's seen these games before. Simon's become a source of entertainment.
What are we going to do when he goes, man?
There are other control games they like to play on Simon.
Ready? Ding ding!
Here, a carer called Jason is playing a boxing game.
What have you got to say?
Simon has to say ding ding to end the round and make it stop.
What's the... How do you win the fight? Is that nice and fun, Dave? How do you win the fight?
It doesn't always work.
Say it then. So, Delirium, what'd you say?
Low blow.
Quite out your neck, isn't it? Quite. Oh, he hits your balls and hangs your bite.
Because he is sort of very exuberant and shouts a lot and likes to play a lot, he becomes a target for sort of play fighting, and sort of, you know, low-level sort of bullying away from other support workers. That just highlights, you know, what some support workers do for their own entertainment, and he bears the brunt of it an awful lot.
You ready?
The hand slapping is a distorted playground game where a carer called Wayne shows who's the strongest. He's a senior support worker at Winterbourne View with ambitions to open his own tattoo parlour.
Slapper.
Wayne is a big bully. He is arrogant. He thinks that he runs the floor. In fact, he thinks he runs the whole of Winterbourne View. And he has this aura about him that strikes fear in a lot of people, including fellow staff and the patients, definitely.
Simon has a fear of toilets. That's where Wayne takes him to teach him a lesson for his bear hugs.
How do you feel? How do you feel at the moment? How's that feeling? Right, this is how everyone else feels. Do you like that? Right, so think about that feeling.
Simon, please pull your trousers up.
Here's Wayne again in the red.
Let go when you're out. Let go when you're out. No, not sort of Wayne. Let go when you're out. Look, this out.
Simon, please pull your trousers up, mate.
No way. Just you stop that right there now. Yeah? That's a martial arts technique that has no place in any kind of care home. But if you also watch this, people watching this, it's just like, you know, in a sense, it's like watching the entertainment.
During Joe's time undercover, he found Simon was a frequent target for bullying and abuse. When Panorama approached his mother Anne and brother James, they asked to see the footage.
That's a start before you did. What's that?
These are adult men, they find it funny.
Say it then. So, Harry, what'd you say? What'd you say?
He slaps him. He slaps her on the face. That's assault. Poor Simon is so confused, he doesn't know what to do. No wonder he's lost his spark. I think Simon's never been treated like that in his life before. And he's obviously trying to do the right thing, but he can't win, can he?
Stand up. Stand up. I said stand up, please.
He can't win. There's no way whatever he does is going to be right to make them happy. They're just having their amusement and their fun. How can that ever be allowed to happen? I'm in shock.
What are you going to do now?
Fight to move Simon, fight to bring Simon back to his home, his family, his village, where he belongs amongst the people that he's grown up with that love him and care for him. Take him out of this system as much as we can, bearing in mind that we still need assistance. I want to see Simon back where he belongs.
Is it raining?
For Simon, our footage would be life-changing. It'd tell a story he never could. Patients like those in Winterbourne View can be difficult to deal with, but there are strict rules governing the control methods used by staff. They have no special powers. They have to abide by the same laws as the rest of us. They can only intervene physically in an emergency When patients are going to harm themselves or others, anything else could be an assault.
Well, I was told during my training that restraint is always the last resort. Has to be. You have to try every other option available to you first of all. And even if you have to use restraint, it's for the minimum amount of time possible. However, at Winterbourne View, a lot of the time, it was used as the first resort.
Most of the restraints Joe witnessed at Winterbourne View you won't see in any training manual. Many of them are straightforward assaults. An 18-year-old female patient is often the target. Simone has been living at Winterbourne for 4 months.
Look at your face. Your skin's gone so bad because you're hot and makes you ugly. Do you want to be ugly? Yeah.
She's very tough to deal with when she wants to be, but when you get a chance to sit down and talk to Simone, she's lovely. You know, she won't talk much, but when she does and when she gives you the smile and the happy face, her face just lights up. That makes you happy. You can always hear Simone from absolutely wherever you are. She's always laughing. She's got that sort of infectious laughter.
Right, forget about bacon then, Simon.
What's up, Simon?
Here's Simone, pinned beneath a chair by Wayne. This isn't restraint, it's a serious assault. Another carer, Graham, wraps a blanket around her head.
There's a night-night.
On you.
I'm telling what? You hit me first.
30 minutes later, jacket off, Wayne's still there. Simone has been largely passive. And now Graham seems to have her in some kind of headlock, whilst another carer hands out sweets.
Me and Simon. Yeah, a bit fresh.
4 days later, Wayne is back in the chair.
Let me know when you've got some pause and then we'll fight, alright?
And whilst he watches the television, he pins Simone's hand beneath his foot. Professor Jim Mansell is the architect of government policy on how we deliver care for these sorts of patients. He's reviewed many abuse scandals in the past.
It's the classic model, the long-serving, unqualified, very strong member of staff who sets a benchmark for managing the situation by the exercise of physical violence on the patients, and then expects all the staff to fall into line.
Other staff look for Wayne's approval. This one, Michael, drops his knees onto Simone's legs. Again, Simone is posing no threat. Then Wayne slaps her.
Shut up. The only thing you got to watch out if you do this, make sure you don't have her, like I did the other day, pinched underneath the chair.
Oh, did it leave a bruise in it?
I didn't mean to do it, yeah, massive. I pinched the skin, I sat on it, it's going to leave a bit of mark.
Wayne was one of the staff that our whistleblower Terry was particularly worried about. Before Winterbourne View, Wayne used to work in a young offenders institution.
He said to me on my first day, I think, I'm one of the good guys, you don't need to worry about me. And alarm bells go when people tell you things like that, because what do they mean by that, you know?
And was he one of the good guys?
No. No, he was one of the people that loved to restrain people.
Oh no, do you want me to get a cheese grater and grate your face off? Do you want me to turn you into a giant pepperami?
Razor.
Yeah?
Yeah.
A razor?
Yeah.
Cut you up?
Oh, yeah, Wayne, do it.
Look, stop dicking around, okay?
Do it, Wayne.
It shook me, this place. It made me really think. it made me wonder and question whether I wanted to even do this job anymore.
What went you, Chris?
Check it.
Support workers at Winterbourne View are paid around £16,000 a year, in line with the rest of the industry. They need no healthcare qualifications. Wayne has been there for more than 3 years and takes the lead, looking after some of the most vulnerable patients.
Blackbirds.
Is that blackbirds?
This woman is one of them. She can be sweet-tempered and playful.
Really well?
Yeah. Oh, good throw. Am I joking? They're not. Yeah. Am I joking, yeah? Hey, I'm only joking, yeah? You're in happy form, aren't you?
Yeah.
Yeah? She was a lovely, friendly, sweet person. She has a personality disorder and a mild learning disability, and there was rumours that she had been abused in the past. She was sometimes difficult to deal with, and she was restrained a lot.
One morning, it's Wayne's job to get her up, and he wants Joe's help.
Yeah.
She refuses to get out, so what we do is we just be as annoying as possible, make a bit amusing, cause a bit of fuss, and then eventually if she still didn't get up, I'll give you the nod, okay? As soon as I give you the nod, all the chances are either then we'll grab her, get her out of bed, grab her and just put her right here. Morning. It's time to get up, princess, okay? Yeah? Should we put some shoes on? What we got? You wanna get out like a good girl? Yeah? Come on. Time to get up.
A female support worker should be present.
This day ahead of us today. Yeah? Lots to look forward to. Yeah? Come on then. Time to get up. If you don't get up in the next 5 minutes, I'm going to grab all of you and I'm going to drag you out of bed, okay?
Wayne shouldn't be escalating the situation.
Time to get up, okay? Time to get up. Good girl. Time to get up. Okay. Do you want to grab you or grab this side?
You want me to grab this side, yeah? Okay.
And then we just launch right. Grab it or That's fine.
Within minutes, the patient's so stressed, she's torn off her clothes and is lying naked and hysterical on the floor. Physical intervention, restraint, is such a serious step. Each time it's used, official records must be kept.
I need to go write that statement from earlier. What were you saying about it?
Yeah,
Wayne has to describe exactly what led to him dragging a patient from her bed. His account could be inspected by the bosses or even by the regulator to make sure patients aren't being abused.
She was reluctant to rise this morning and refused to attend to her personal hygiene at 8:30 despite staff's efforts to direct her and offer of female support. Myself and Joe attending became aggressive and started hitting out at myself. As a result, I was led from her bedroom by myself and Joseph.
That's not what happened. But a lot goes on in this hospital that doesn't get into those official reports. In the afternoon, it seems the same woman who Wayne dragged out of bed in the morning has just attempted to jump out of a second-story window. Wayne's there.
Go and do it now, I know. I'd like to see you do a good flying. When you're on the floor, do you reckon you'll make her fly or a splash? Come on, like, keep able to you. Come on, watch it a bit more. I like watching you lot. It's crazy. Why did you jump from somewhere you can fit?
Wayne and another carer, Nino, pretend they're in a gangster film.
I'll make a phone call and get to what?
Get her clipped.
Yo, I got a piece of cake here.
There's gonna be a murder!
Then, out of the blue, Wayne leaps on a patient in the corner.
Wayne had lost it. Previously, we're talking about abuse that's been handed out over time, but in one period of time, he basically aimed all of his abuse and attacks at at least 3 patients in one room. He just went from one to one to one, straight one after the other. He'd completely lost it. He'd lost all control.
Into the room.
Simon, what are you doing, mate? What are you doing? Come on. Get down. Come on then, let's go. Me and you, I'm ready. Yeah, I am. I'm warmed up. Let's go. Come on, let's through then. No. What do you want? What do you want? I'm gonna put your face off then. I'm gonna put your face off. Yeah. Yeah, why not? Simon, where you up, mate? We're good there, yeah? So we know it.
The staff don't think that these are human beings just like them. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to do what they're doing to people.
This kind of abuse was more common decades ago, when the learning disabled were kept in large asylums.
Nurses here are filled with a feeling of futile anger. In order to work here for any length of time, they often distance themselves and become hardened to problems.
Abuse scandals were one of the main reasons asylums were shut down and patients moved to the community or to smaller, more specialised units. Now an increasing number of those are being run privately, like Winterbourne View, owned by a company called Castlebeck. With an annual turnover of £90 million, it has 580 patients in its care. A place in Winterbourne View costs an average of £3,500 per patient per week. But Winterbourne is a hospital which seems to have stopped caring.
This is the worst kind of institutional care. It's the kind of thing that was prevalent at the end of the 60s and that led Britain to gradually close the large long-stay institutions.
Assaults at Winterbourne View have become endemic. This is a support worker called Danny, his victim, Simone again. She doesn't need restraining, but with her head covered, he kneels across her neck, a serious assault. Some of the assaults are even pre-planned, and there's a tone of retribution.
Who are we talking about?
Here's Charlotte, planning her next approach to a difficult patient.
He's pushing it, so we're going to floor him. He just really doesn't give a shit, and he's the sort of bloke where we need him to give a shit, because, you know, we don't usually get these much staff on stay. Yeah. So when we got it, we need to abuse it. So he'll be kissing the carpet soon, I expect.
Michael, another carer, needlessly controls Simone by bending her wrists. Another assault.
Going to get.
Later, he tries to explain his approach.
The only language she understands is force.
Well, what do you do then to sort of...
Sometimes you might have to just put on the floor a restrainer or say that you're going to take things out of her bedroom. It has to be a consequence for her to, you know?
In one of the weeks where we were filming in their undercover, there were 24 restraints in a single week. Does that sound like a lot to you?
Yes, one would be a lot, wouldn't it? I mean, because what you're describing here is a service, a model of looking after people in which staff are just standing around waiting to pounce on people and restrain them. There's nothing else to do.
When he walks away from one of us, we'll put him down there. Then you might think twice about it next time, right down there.
In fact, they're so bereft of anything to do that they're actually provoking incidents that allow them to restrain people.
Come on then, we need to do some garden stuff, don't we, eh?
No, we do.
Come on then.
We're putting all these bits and pieces into the bag.
Right. That's good, isn't it? That's good mood.
There are attempts to fill the time with group activities, sometimes outdoors, and there are carers who do their best. Most of these patients have been warehoused at Winterbourne View for more than a year, and with so little to do, boredom sets in. Here, they're being taught about underwater volcanoes. Support worker Graham stumbles through the text.
Smokers are home to a community of organisms that thrive in the scalding waters and toxic chemicals. The organisms include giant clams and tube worms. So, underwater volcanoes, basically.
For the staff too, there is no point to any of this. There is nothing to do during the day. The only interest and excitement comes out of prodding people to get a reaction and then implementing the restraint procedures that they're doing.
Graham is one of the main offenders. He first applied for a job here as a kitchen porter.
Graham is a disturbing man. He's one of Wayne's lieutenants. He follows orders and really doesn't think about what he's doing. He just hands out abuse, hands out pain. He walks around normally in his jacket, scowling, really just not wanting to be there. And I don't know why he is, because he is not caring for those patients at all.
Sir, kid. Lunch stop for us. See you later.
Remarkably, this culture of abuse persists at Winterbourne View, despite a carer being convicted of assaulting a patient just 2 months before our filming. Melanie Nichols slapped a patient, a wheelchair user, several times as she was in the shower. She then forced wet wipes into her mouth. The patient's parents were never told the full story. They received £200 in compensation and assumed the incident had been minor. But that criminal conviction hasn't deterred some of the remaining carers. The threat of punishment in the shower and toilets is still there.
And you, Simone, if I come back and find out you haven't been, we'll be having a shower, not together, in your room. Simon will be in the toilet. Simon will be in the... Simone will be having a cold shower. Beautiful. So you two, it's up to you, isn't it?
Simon likes to shower and the toilet.
Castlebeck's bosses missed a series of warning signs. The assault in the shower, and an incident where another carer headbutted a patient, breaking his nose. And then there was senior nurse Terry Bryan. He blew the whistle to Castlebeck about the abuse of patients in a 4-page email last October. He named Michael, Charlotte, and a carer called Holly. He also named the ringleader, Wayne.
My original email was to the manager of Winterbourne View. I had no reply from that, or from his manager as well.
So you sent it to the manager and his manager who was outside the hospital?
Yes, he was based elsewhere in the country. Still part of Castlebeck. No response from either of them.
We put that failure to the new boss of Castlebeck, who took over in January.
What should have happened at the time was the staff named in those initial allegations that the former employee made should have been suspended, and they weren't.
So you could have suspended them at the time?
We can suspend staff, yes.
So you could have gone in at the time. I mean, this is the letter. I don't know if you've seen it. There's 4 pages there.
I have. No, you're absolutely right. Yes, no.
Naming the perpetrators.
Yeah, no.
So you're telling me you could have gone in and suspended people?
No, we should have suspended people. I'm not saying we shouldn't have. That's absolutely what we should have done, and we didn't do it. And I'm not defending that. I'm actually saying we should have done it, and it didn't happen.
If that complaint had been acted upon, it's likely none of what you've seen so far would have happened. And Simone in particular would have been spared months of abuse. Until last summer, she lived with her parents in Wiltshire. She was born with a genetic abnormality, but still enjoyed a full and energetic teenage life.
She likes to go down the slides and on the swing boats and look round houses. She likes to go to the beach.
And swimming all the time.
And swimming all the time.
Oh, she's an energetic girl. Like, we're 2 old fogies. We got an hard job to keep up with her.
And what kind of person is she?
Very lovable. Very lovable.
Last summer, Simone began suffering unexplained headaches, and there were some violent outbursts. She was forcibly taken into care and ended up in Winterbourne View. What was about to happen to Simone in a single day left even our carer Joe numbed.
I've just come back from a very, very long shift at Winterbourne View, and I've seen what is easily the most shocking thing I've ever seen in my entire life.
Simone's day begins badly. That's Graham on the left, attacking her. The nurse in charge of the day shift is Kelvin. He should intervene if he witnesses any mistreatment. He's heard something's happening to Simone in the shower. This is his reaction. Then he turns and walks away. Also present in the green shirt is Ali again, and Graham. Even for our expert, it's profoundly shocking.
This isn't a jail. This isn't Guantanamo. People are not here to be punished. This is a therapeutic environment. Where's the therapy in any of this? I would argue this is torture.
Later, there are screams from the garden. Wayne's outside with Simone. He's poured a jug of water over her. It's March, and the temperature's just above zero.
Yeah. Let me see what you've got.
Come on then.
Go on then, stand up then. Listen, punch properly and then we'll have a ride.
No way.
Come on then.
No way.
Come on then.
No way.
Come on then, me and you. Let's have a ride then. Come on.
No way.
You want some?
No!
Alright. Shut up then. Stop threatening me.
Yeah?
Go on, do something then. Do something. Don't just stand there threatening.
Remember, Simone's a patient, Wayne's her carer.
Getting cold now?
No. Fuck off, you prick.
Your mum's a prick.
No, you!
Listen, why are you being rude? I'm not being rude to you, am I? Talk nicely to me and I'll talk nicely to you.
Get police on you.
Please don't come here.
Yes, they do, you fucking git.
You shut the curtains, mate.
Wet and cold, Simone's now been outside for 15 minutes.
Do you want to come in?
We're going to bring her in because she's shaking. We're going to bring her in because she's shaking.
She was in a terrible situation. When we finally brought her in, I thought that Wayne had gone too far, that the charge nurse would intervene and he would be in trouble.
When she's back inside, the charge nurse does appear. It's Kelvin again, the one who failed to intervene in the shower. Wayne's explanation should have had him disciplined, but Joe sees no sign of that.
Okay. She started refusing to come up. Yeah. Then she started like spitting at me, so I got fed up of being covered in spit, so I got the jug of water and just tipped over. I knew she'd get cold quickly, and I thought I'd last her out, but unfortunately she started shaking, so I thought I'd bring her in before she hit blue. Mr. Mum, hungry?
Simone is often the centre of abuse, but the people, the carers who are handing it out, they're normally on different shifts on different days, so it's not so concentrated. However, on this day, These people who were handing out abuse before, they were all on the shift.
The night shift has started and Simone's refusing to go to bed. The night shift nurse appears, the man in charge, Apu. He gets an explanation. And instead of intervening, he watches as the abuse worsens.
You're getting the plan out. What temperature you put in?
They use the fan to make her colder. Nurse Apu has 35 years' experience, but he stands by and continues smiling. On a number of occasions, charge nurses turn up during abuse, serious abuse, smile quite often and walk away.
I would expect the support worker with 2 days' experience to intervene. It doesn't need to be a charge nurse. You know, it's just not acceptable practice. None of the allegations that have been made are acceptable.
Support workers Graham, Ali and Holly get Simone into her room. The nurse Apu is still there. Simone's immediately set upon. They're trying to give her medication, even though the hospital's banned the use of force to do so.
Wait, you just swallowed it and it'll be all over.
Graham's holding her nose to force her to swallow. All this just for a paracetamol. The man in the brown shoes is the nurse, Apu, again. After a moment, he leaves them to it.
But once the door closed and the nurse had left and another couple of support workers had left, and I was left with Holly, Ali and Graham, the level of abuse that I saw in that room for 15 minutes was the worst I've ever seen in my entire life.
Graham decides to play camp commandant.
9, 9, 9! Over there, and cracked her little friend. Obviously, we went and ripped it up. I thought it was our friend.
So I put your pyjamas on, Simone?
She's so in a state of hyperarousal and stress now that she's actually almost burnt out. She's almost kind of
shaking, isn't she?
Shaking. And that's the adrenaline that's going through her body. So that's a heightened state of anxiety. She is in such a distressed state.
Do you want your pyjamas? Wait, do you want your pyjamas?
Oh, these are flowers.
The flowers were a present from her parents. Graham tips the flower water in her face. At this point, the secret camera runs out of power. But the abuse continues. Simone is given her second shower of the day, fully clothed. Joe saw it all.
At one stage, Ali got a bottle of mouthwash, and started pouring that on top of her as well. You could see it was stinging her eyes, and this poor girl, was absolutely devastated. She was in tears. I was the only person who wasn't doing anything. She just kept looking at me, and everyone else was just attacking her.
When we contacted Simone's parents about what was happening to her, they wanted to see the footage and have agreed to it being broadcast.
my God. She's got to come out of there now. That's disgusting. They should be locked away for that. Literally locked away. Every one of them that's in there.
She thinks, oh, Mum and Daddy's left me in a place like this.
Yeah.
Why have they left me in a place like this? To get tortured. That's how her mind's going to work.
She's been tortured, isn't she? Literally tortured. Physically and mentally tortured.
Oh, mate.
On a recent visit, they remembered Simone had tried to tell them she was being mistreated.
She told us that she'd been hit, her hair had been pulled,
and kicked.
And she'd been kicked, and I said, no, Simone, this wouldn't happen, they're not allowed. This is what she told us, and I said no. So I have more or less told my daughter that she's telling lies to me, her mother, and she wasn't telling lies. And we've let her down by not believing her.
After 5 weeks working in Winterbourne View, Joe recorded his last video diary.
I just quit my job today as a support worker at Winterbourne View. In my few weeks I spent at Winterbourne View, I have been shocked and amazed by what I have seen. It has been a real eye-opener. And I've seen it all, it's all happened right in front of me. It's been terrible, really, to be honest. And some of the stuff I will see will stick in my mind for a long time. Some of the abuse I've seen will just be with me for a very, very long time.
But it could all have been prevented. Terry Bryan, the Winterbourne whistleblower, reported his suspicions of abuse last year. After going to his bosses and getting nowhere, he went to the top, to the regulator, the Care Quality Commission, or CQC. He contacted them 3 times, but they failed to tackle the abuse.
I'm astonished. I just can't believe it that someone like me who knows the way it works, other people don't have that knowledge maybe. People just coming into the profession, they won't have that knowledge and they won't know this. So if I can't get anything out of the people at the CQC, I worry that other people won't even get anywhere near them.
What's the point of a regulator when, despite repeated warnings, it failed to protect some of the country's most vulnerable patients? In effect, the CQC was unwittingly complicit. A senior nurse from Winterbourne View contacted you 3 times, on 3 occasions, with the word abuse,
yes.
And nobody saw fit to follow that up?
That was a misjudgment.
And by that misjudgment, you've prolonged the suffering. You, the regulator, the people that we trust to look after our families in care, have prolonged their suffering by several months.
There was an opportunity that we missed, and that meant that that suffering, that cruelty, was potentially prolonged, absolutely.
It wasn't potentially prolonged, so it was
prolonged. It was prolonged. Yes.
The systematic
abuse.
Yes,
I've said that. We made a misjudgment, and as a result of that, had we acted at that time, as we've done now, we can act very quickly to cease that kind of treatment. We missed that chance, and we're sorry for that, and we're doing everything we can now to make sure we're responding properly.
But it's even worse. The Care Quality Commission actually inspected Winterbourne View 3 times in the last 2 years, and they failed to spot anything was wrong.
When we inspected, there was no evidence, both in speaking to staff and patients, and observing and looking at documentation, for us to identify evidence that there was systematic abuse.
And what does that tell you about your inspection system? It's clearly failed here.
No, I don't think that's correct.
Has it failed here, though?
I think the inspection system, the regulatory system, it hasn't identified this on its own.
So it's failed, hasn't it? It's failed the people who live in Winterbourne View.
I think the people in Winterbourne View have been failed, and I think we are part of that system. The hard thing is that we had our staff in that unit on occasions, sometimes announced, sometimes unannounced, and that the evidence of that wasn't apparent.
As a result of our findings, the CQC is now reviewing all Castlebeck's facilities. Castlebeck says it set up independent reviews of its 56 homes and hospitals, a whistleblower hotline, and it's examining all patient records for any concerns.
Personally, I'm ashamed to be part of an organisation where that kind of behaviour can go on, and all I can do is unreservedly apologise to both the families and the vulnerable adults that have been involved in this, on behalf of myself as Chief Executive and Castlebeck, for what's happened, and recommit to making sure this doesn't happen again.
I warned you, you don't listen.
After we told Winterbourne View about the abuse we'd uncovered, 13 staff were suspended, including senior managers and all the nurses and support workers identified in our film. The police have launched an investigation.
How do you know it's not an awful lot more widespread? Because we can't be sure that your system's picking it up, that's the bottom line.
What any regulator will find difficult to do is uncover whether it's...
I know you'll find it difficult to uncover, but in this situation, it was handed to you on a plate.
Yes, and that is something that we need to address. We must make sure that that kind of failure in judgment does not happen again, so we can build the confidence of the public so that they can trust the regulator to do its job.
But the man who wrote government policy on patients like the ones we've seen believes it's time to call a halt to the practice of putting them into locked hospitals.
I believe that they could all be living in a small residential home or their own home in the community. There's no case for institutional care for people with learning disabilities.
What should happen to this hospital, do you think?
It should be closed down.
Simone has now been moved to a new hospital. Simon was moved out of Winterbourne View just hours after Panorama interviewed his mother and brother.
Okay. This is my shower room. That's your shower room?
He's now back in the home he lived in 3 years ago.
You're right about that, son?
Yeah.
Are you?
How does it feel to see your mum again?
Happy.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
And how does it feel to be back here in this
Good.
place? Do you like it here?
Yeah. This is my best brother.
Oh.
I'm my best brother.
Yes, I am your best brother.
You know the place that you've come from, Simon?
Yeah.
Which is quite a long way away.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that place? What's that? Thumbs down? What was it like?
Rubbish.
It was rubbish.
Oh.
Was it?
Yeah.
So now you've left it, okay?
They're horrible.
They're horrible. I mean,
Yeah.
they used to do dreadful things to you.
Yeah.
I know.
I'm not having dinner in Winterbourne ever again.
You have to stay at Winterbourne ever again.
No, I promise you, you won't have to.
Now the real question remains, how many other Winterbourne Views are there? And how many more people like Simone and Simon?